Okay. Right. So,
Okay, everyone, may I have your attention, please?
Oh, we're good.
Welcome. It's 5:40 p.m. And I would like to thank all of you for your patience as we work through a technical issue. As chair of the HSPB, I'm calling today's meeting, September 3rd, 2024, from the Historic Site Preservation Board to order. May we please have the roll call?
Chair Nelson. Chair Nelson,
Present.
Vice Chair Nelson is absent. He has informed us that he would not be attending today. Not Nelson. Sorry, Wilson now. Sorry about that. Member Hanson. Present. Member Bachman.
present.
Member Hare.
Present.
Member Mootsie.
Here.
And Member Mishka Hitchcock. She is actually listening in virtually. She will not be able to attend attend the discussion or participate in the discussion or the vote because we were unable to disclose her location. So I believe she'll be joining us remotely and listening in on conversations.
Great. Thank you, Barry. May we please have a staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Yes. The agenda for the meeting was posted for public review at the City Hall Bulletin Board in the west side of Council Chambers and at the Planning Department counter in accordance with the city's policies.
Good, thank you. Does the board have any revision? Nope. Okay, great. Being none, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I so move.
Right, we have a motion by member Hanson, is there a second?
I second.
And we have a second by member Hare. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Alrighty, this is the time for public comment. So this time has been set aside for any members of the public to address the board on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter of jurisdiction of our board. Although we value your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, we cannot take action on any item not listed on this agenda. There will be 3 minutes of time for each speaker. Testimony for public hearings will be taken at the time of those hearings. Do we have any public comment?
We do it now or at the action item
If you have a,
on to, on to.
You can do it now or at the time of the hearing.
Hi,
just come up and introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
everybody knows me.
We have a microphone there as well. Great, just press the little button.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Hi, Michelle Johnson, Palm Springs. I just wanted to talk on the item 2, the Merrill Lynch building. Although I'm a member of PSPF, I'm speaking as a resident. I've had opportunity to use that building a couple of times, and it's really cool how downstairs I've got a plaque up for Don Wexler telling his story. They've got stuff about the building, they've got things here and there, and it's just a really cool building as it is, and I'm totally in favor of having a class 1.
Good. Anything else? Okay,
Maybe I'll
you,
get my
Michelle.
red star from PSPF.
we appreciate you taking the time to be here today. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Staff, has anyone requested to comment on a non-public hearing item or item not on the agenda today?
No, we haven't received any separate public comment on non-public hearing items.
Okay, great. Thank you. Seeing none, we will close this portion of the agenda and proceed to the next item, which is the consent calendar, which we have one item today. Item 1A, the draft minutes from July 2nd, 2024. Does anyone wish to provide comment on the agenda or the minute, rather? Member Hampton.
I just wanted to clarify, I think one point that the minutes say that I said, it's under number 5 discussions on page 3 or 4 at the bottom. Member Hanson requests a review by staff of treatment of lot splits that have historic resources on them. I think, to be a little bit more specific, I was asking for in the future that, lot split projects that have historic resources on them get more careful review and consideration under the California Environmental Quality Act. So if that happens, there would be an initial study that would have a check sheet and just quickly explain them and you guys can. Anyway, it would say, is there a potential to impact historic resources at that point? If the answer would be yes, then some of the projects that we had seen maybe would have taken a different path. So I'm just mostly requesting that future projects give greater consideration under the California Environmental Quality Act.
Member Musi?
I understand the idea of wanting to abbreviate the minutes for the purpose of not having the staff takes as much time in the past as they've had to. It makes sense, excuse me. But it's gotten a little brief to the point where, as we just saw, I mean, something that's of that significance needs to have some more information on it. But is it the idea that perhaps if people really were that interested, they could go and look at the video and hear the whole story?
Correct, yeah, that was the kind of reasoning behind doing the action summaries for minutes and recording minutes versus the narrative minutes that we had historically done. Because of the access and availability of the meetings online, they're available for anyone at any time of the day to go on and watch the proceedings. That was kind of the direction that the city's gone.
So for legal reasons and other things, if let's say it was an attorney and they had a question that, you know, that wasn't answered by reading the principal notes.
Yeah.
They're required, they would have to go to and find in that recording the discussion. And I guess write it down if they wanted to be real specific.
Yeah, essentially, and if there's any type of legal action that would happen on a project or a case. There would be, I'm sure, some verbatim transcripts that would be prepared if needed.
Oh, by the city?
If necessary, yeah,
Oh,
we've done that in the
all right.
past.
Alrighty then.
So just to follow up on that, I'm just thinking, you know, because this is under discussions, under some of the other items, you know, we know what the item number is, we know what the case was, but under something where it's discussion, there's no context whatsoever for why I would have said that.
Sure.
I mean, I'm just thinking like, there was a discussion about lot split and some concern, I mean, can we even do that or? I mean,
You
like-
can ask us to include anything specific that you wanted to make clear in the record, certainly. But again, even action items or items that require that have come before council, they've just said council's provided direction to staff, and it's very broad in a lot of those cases, and you really wouldn't know what the direction was unless you went and watched the video, so that's kind of the direction we've been given.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Hanson and Member Musi. Just to note, this is the second time this has been brought up regarding having a little more meat or definition in the minute. So thank you both for that. I would like to point out one thing, just maybe my memory failing me, but on page 1A of the July 2nd meeting minute, showed that motion was made by Member Malusi and seconded by Member Hanson to elect Mr. Nelson as chair. I believe that Member Hanson made the motion and then Member Malusi seconded it. So it reversed, it's flipped. Just
Oh, maybe I don't.
just for clarification.
I think it's actually, I think you did.
And then but I would defer to the recording for that, but I think that's what I remembered. And that's it for me. Anyone else have anything on the minute? No, okay, great. All right, so being that that's all part of the consent calendar, does anyone wish to provide further items for discussion on that? If not, can I have a motion to approve the minute as revised?
I move to approve the minutes of July 2nd, 2024.
I second that.
Great, thank you so much. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, motion after 5-0. Alrighty, now we move on to agenda item 2, public hearing. And public hearing 2A, application by Charles E. Bentall and Julie Bentall for historic site designation of the Bonham Well residence located at 1850 Willow Tree Lane, Block 6, 4 lots, case HPB number 159. Sarah, may we please have a staff report?
I think we're gonna use every technical glitch we can think of. Weird, that's here. Alright, so. Project before HSPB, this afternoon, 1850 Smoke Tree Lane, also known as Property Rock 6 4L, is in Smoke Tree Ranch. This is HSPB case number 159, or class 4 historic landmark designation. So the single family home as seen in the aerial map is a corner lot that was developed in the early beginnings of the subdivision. As noted in the historic resources report, the homeowners were typically, they own a U lot adjacent to their property that cannot contain a structure. And so that U lot isn't captured here, but it is south of the existing residence. The original site placement of the home here is also set further back from the main road. And as you can see, this is in a single family residential zone district. This is a photo of the site seen from the front or north elevation. You can quickly ascertain that the style of this building is that of a rustic ranch style home, which was typically associated with features such as low pitched roofs, an L or U-shaped floor plan or building footprint that was integral to the surroundings of the natural landscape. A common feature that we see in Smoke Tree Ranch development is that of that protruding building element with a shed roof. They often bookend the home on either or both ends of the house. The report shows historic photos in the 1940s of the building. And it shows the presence of this shed roof portion of the building, both at the front and at the rear of the home. The context for the project is between the wars, 1919 to 1941. And the theme within this context is the development of single family residential homes. Another unique context embedded in this particular situation is the history of tourism and the emergence of the Dude Ranch. This trend of development is very much an integral part of Palm Springs' history during this period. The architectural context of this era also focuses on the rustic style ranch, which is a style of architecture that defines the Smoke Tree Ranch today. Although the visual comparison between the historic photos and today, you'll see certain elements that have slightly been altered, such as the porch. The overall scale and architectural language of the home remains very consistent with the original design intent. At the rear of the home, the overall scale and massing of the building and the continuation of the original design features remain relatively consistent. Outside of the new bedroom addition that was added in 2016. This addition, the one from 2016, does not appear to interrupt the shape of the original shed roof massing that we saw in the north elevation by being located behind the structure, and it does keep the roof intact. The roof rafters that are wooden, the wooden shingle shapes, the board and batten siding are some of the main materials of the exterior that are consistent with the original design, and the new additions that were added on maintained this material palette. The new openings that have been called out in the report, they are limited to areas that do not impact the overall form of the building, which is crucially important. The use and the same style of opening was used for these new openings. And as you can see, they are under that roof overhang. And so it's tucked away and in a location where fenestration was prevalent. Again, the changes are in character with the overall design of the home and remain consistent with that rustic ranch style that we see for the overall design of the home. We go to look at the details of the criteria. Despite the alterations identified, the home is found to be historically significant by meeting criterion 3 and 5. The home is in its current state, exemplifying the period of significance in a way that demonstrates the period between the wars, and the architecture does not deviate from that rustic style ranch home that was the initial design intent. The home is also associated with the architect John Porter Clark. Research in the report reveals that this is an early rendition of the residential development within Smoke Tree Ranch, and it's also one of John Porter Clark's earlier works. His design intent remains largely intact, meaning the character-defining features are still there and identifiable. As far as the integrity findings are concerned, the location, setting, and feeling build the case for meeting the criteria for historic significance. The design integrity and the materials continue to have a strong and identifiable presence on the site. And as we've mentioned previously, the meeting of the integrity standards is that there is sufficient integrity to demonstrate its historic significance. The list of character defining features are as follows. Much of these details support the design features and characteristics of the rustic style ranch home. It is important to note that during the various renovations of the home, certain elements of the home, like the direction of the board and batten siding, and the louvered style shutters, were changed. For an accurate restoration of these features in the future, the character defining list is referencing the historic photos in the historic resources report for these features. And on the non-contributing side of things, the bedroom addition from 2016 and the porch extension on the front elevation are seen as changes, along with the modern exterior light fixtures and the fenestration changes to the south elevation. So based on the report and the site visit, staff finds the property meets 2 criteria and sufficient integrity to support the request for a class 1 designation. Staff recommends that HSPB adopt the resolution number 159, the designation of the Burnham Wells residence to City Council. We do have Tracy Conrad present on behalf of the owner to answer any questions, and I'm here to answer any questions we have in this staff report.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Does the board have any questions for staff at this time? Member Hanson?
I just have a clarification. So the consultant report recommended it be eligible under criteria 3, 4, and 5, and staff recommendation is 3 and 5. Correct.
Could I just ask why criterion 4 was dropped?
So the way that Palm Springs has historically interpreted criterion 4 is how it relates to construction technology and how it relates to the history of construction. And so the applicant report listed Gordon Batten siting as how it met that criterion. And in the description of the report, you'll find that Gordon Batten siting was not a new technology, it was something that was renewed in terms of an interest. And so staff found that it didn't meet that.
Thank you.
Any further comment for staff? Being none. At this time, I would like to invite the applicant to the table. So they may provide any comments and answer any questions regarding the application. Welcome to Tracy Conrad.
Thank you. Is this on? Good evening. Thank you for hearing me. I'm here on behalf of Chuck Bentall and Julie Bentall, who are the owners, as well as Steve Vaught, who produced the report. So I'll do, I'm sure, a worse job than they will, but I am here in 111-degree heat with you. I think that the most important point to make about this is that it's a sole project of John Porter Clark, and John Porter Clark has not received the amounts of accolades and attention that he should. We're sitting in a building that he was a co-collaborator of, and it's often a throwaway with Ray, Clark and Chambers, and we should know more about John Porter Clark. And I think this designation is a way to push that narrative forward. And I do think that people are becoming more aware of his he was, he was a working architect. He did some fabulous things, and he wasn't an egomaniac. So anyway, it's a fabulous little house. It follows Smoke Tree's vernacular, which is a hard thing to do. I understand. I thank staff for the recommendation, because I do think that its ethos is correct still. So it has some interesting personalities associated with it in terms of the owners and builders, but John Porter Clark might finally get his due here. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The owner is very interested in preserving it and designating it.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? No? Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'll open the public hearing. So if there's anyone on Zoom or in the audience who would like to speak to this item, you may do so now. Staff, have we had anyone? Staff, have we had anyone on Zoom who would request to speak for this item?
It doesn't look like we have anyone responding or asking questions for this item.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right. And no one in the audience, so the public hearing is now closed. So the action is now with the board. I'll open it up to you guys for any comment or discussion on this item, please. Member Hanson.
Yes, for me, I just make some, oh, I'm sorry, was there?
Well, I just wanted to clarify or point out that because of some confusion here with member Hitchcock's participation, she asked that her questions be read and answered because she's unable to participate remotely as a part of the proceedings. We weren't sure about whether she could or not, and we ultimately found out that she wasn't able to. So we were going to ask some of the questions that she had so that we could respond and address them, if that's okay with the board.
Yeah, and again, just to clarify, there is a requirement, that didn't get fully vetted out in terms of disclosing her location, so she's unable to attend virtually, but she has sent her notes and questions, I would like to read them. We can get those questions vetted.
So I'll, if that's okay, I'll start with some of the questions. So
Please
first,
do.
her first question on this item was, do phrase plans count as the original design intention? As contributing elements, including the porches?
Can you repeat I'm sorry, what was the first part you said?
Do phrase plans count as the original design intention? As contributing elements and as well as the porches?
So I can answer from kind of staff's review of that analysis. In this case, it is a little bit different than what we had seen in Blankenhorn. The contributions that Frey had made, not all of them were realized. They were incorporated into the report in the early 1990s. And so in staff's analysis, the design of John Porter Clark was where the historical significance lied. And so the additions that Frey had incorporated were not included as contributing elements. To further explain, the Frey's contributions were pretty limited. I think they were limited to the extension of the porch. So that was not included as a character for staff's.
The next question she had was relative to page 91 of the report. It says residential property from this period eligible under criterion A13 should retain integrity of location, design, workmanship, materials, and feeling at a minimum. And then she asked, why is this an exception?
I think this is asking really about the findings of integrity. I think we had talked about this in our workshop as well, but the intent isn't that you have to meet every single integrity item. The intent of the integrity, I guess, is that you meet a sufficient number of the integrity items in order to demonstrate your historic.
Her next question is relative to page 92 of the report.
David, can I stop you there? There is no page 92. It ends at page 76.
My guess is that she is looking at the packet as a whole, starting from page 1 to.
So like the paper version? Oh, I just have the electronic version.
Yeah, that electronic version is a different.
My apologies.
Says eligible examples identified in the survey typically retain all or most of their original windows, particularly on the primary facade, original wall cladding, and do not have additions that are visible from the public right of way. Why should this be an exception?
Again, I think this question is really referring to the level of integrity. We have integrity supporting the historic designation, the criteria findings. Sometimes we rely on the criteria findings and then the integrity supporting that. So not all instances require every single original window and every single element of the primary facade to be present.
And then she just had a comment about it's interesting to argue that it meets the criteria because it was able to be easily added onto, fulfilling a tenet of the style. And then she had a couple of other questions related to contributing versus non-contributing elements. The first was, which shed roof is contributing?
So when we look at the historic photographs of the report, we see that both shed roofs appear in the 41 photos. There's one on the front facade, and then when you move to the rear, you actually see a photo of the porch, the child, and you see the shed roof there. So both are contributing elements.
And then her last question on this is, why are the replacement window and doors not contributing? Aren't the openings contributing even if the windows and doors aren't?
That's an interesting question. The openings certainly are contributing. The actual elements and hardware is something that we really drill into a lot of times. So if there is a importance in the location of the openings, that certainly can be identified. And
Can I add a comment to that? I think that, you know. The short answer is, because that's just not how we do it, but, maybe to explain a little further, one of the reasons I think that it doesn't make as much difference that the windows themselves have been replaced is because the original openings are intact. So when you're looking at issues of integrity, because the fenestration patterns are intact, it's less important. But also to go back to her question, about, I think it was the reference to the context statement, it said most examples have this or that. I mean, those are generalizations that you would find in a survey, but when you're actually designating something, of course, you're taking it case by case. And so, there may be instances, and this I think is one of them, where it's not as important. I wouldn't say it's an exception, because that wasn't a rule to begin with. It was just sort of a summary of the other existing examples and the features that they do have that are intact. It wasn't, for example, a list of character defining features that you might find in a multiple property nomination that you have to meet these criteria to be listed. So these are looked at case by case basis. And there's, in this case, the architect is, a more unusual circumstance where, he's been less recognized independently for his work. So there are unique circumstances to each nomination is what I'm trying to say.
I'd like to add to that.
Sure.
I personally have an issue about windows. Them, especially if they've been replaced with something that is so contemporary, like aluminum sliders or worse yet, vinyl. I think these are aluminum. They're not aluminum? I think they're aluminum. I think that's what was in the report. It's worth noting, it's generally very important to me, but in the overall scheme of things, as relates to the significance of the building, it wouldn't. It's the lack of original windows would not cause the level of integrity to not be able to display its significance. So I'm glad I'm assuming it's called out. I don't recall. I didn't print it out. As non-contributing would be the physical windows. The openings are contributing, but the physical windows are contemporary.
Oh. That has not been called out, so we can certainly
Yeah.
add that in as a non-contributing.
Yeah, just it's, you see it when you look at a facade of any primary elevation. The windows are a big deal, and especially in this case, it's not, but if they're white vinyl, that's just horrific. So I'm glad they're not white vinyl.
Could that also just make a note that the openings are original, however, the windows have been replaced as a non-contributor? Yeah, that's a very good point.
So before we continue with other board member comments, was there another question that from Captain? Okay, good. So would you like Member Bachman to continue to elaborate on what's been said?
Please, yeah.
Thank
Is there any way we can, for future reference, if the windows are replaced again, force a more historical window? Can they go worse? Could they change the windows in the future towards something vinyl, less attractive? Or are we stuck? The windows will be changed in the future if the building continues on, so
I mean, I think.
how do we navigate that?
Yeah, I think that's.
I have a comment in response to that. So it says in the character defining features and the staff report that the divided sash windows are character defining feature. And in the report, the original windows that were part of the John Porter Clark design had been painted so much they were painted shut. And when Floyd came along, he specified all new windows, which initially did not get installed, but eventually were. So the windows that are there now are to the exact specifications that Floyd made. So I feel like those are that they have enough integrity, hopefully, and I don't see those windows are only probably, what, 15, 20 years old now, perhaps? So, I don't know that that it's necessary to, go back to what Clark had, detailed, because I think that for a detail that, I think that he respected the Clark design and the specification he made that was eventually installed was very close to, the original Clark window design. So that's just my feeling. Member Hare?
For any kind of future alteration, in other words, the windows fail and have to be replaced, wouldn't they have to come back to us for some kind of approval for a new replacement?
So any, if it is historically designated, any exterior change will need to receive a certificate of appropriateness. And based on the scale of work, it would be either a minor or major. The majors all come before the board. The minor has the opportunity to be addressed at a staff level. With that being said, the more detail we have in the ordinance or the resolution language, that does help guide what is appropriate, but we do refer back to the 4 criteria for alterations to a historic site, which talks about period appropriateness, which by no one knows not be period appropriate for this home. But I think if you want to add in more detail, that does help guide some of that decision making.
Any further comments on that? Member Hanson?
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit further, or maybe not, maybe it's sort of a separate point, but Sarah, when you did the staff report, you had referenced that under that time period, there were really 2 themes that we're looking at for this house, and one was architecture, but the other was the tourism and the history of the property itself. And under circumstances like that, again, we're not taking architecture in a vacuum here, and I think there's a greater level of significance than just stellar architectural design. So that also is taken into account with issues of integrity, because it certainly conveys its significance, I believe, as sufficient under both, but to me, a changing of some window material in terms of the overall significance of Smoke Tree Ranch as a property is much less significant. To the significance of the property. So I personally am in support of the nomination as submitted and as presented to us by staff, and I think it was a great report. Thank the applicant for all the work done on the report.
Great. Thank you, Member Hanson. I actually would like to call the applicant back up because of the question I forgot. So Tracy, if you wouldn't mind. This was a question that arose during a site visit, and I had wished you were nearby so that I could ask you that. So I'm asking you now. So in the staff report and recommendation, the first thing they list under character defining features of the resource are site placement in the desert landscape. So this leads me to a question about the incredible tamarisk tree that is on the front eastern side of the property, which really has a lot to do with the setting and conveying a feeling, as you well know. And in all the nominations that we've heard for Smoke Tree, maybe 3, possibly 4 to this point, I don't think we've ever really gotten into the nuts and bolts of plant material. And I know that that is a huge reason for Smoke Tree Ranch. It was the Smoke Tree Forest, and that is preserving that native desert foliage and landscape and that look and feeling. So that tamarisk tree is so large, it seems like it maybe date to when the house was built or even predate the house. So can you shed some light on, like, if let's say they sold it and the next owner wanted to chop that tree down? What?
Would not happen, because of our architectural standards, and we spend a lot of time talking about landscaping, even if it didn't, if it doesn't come before all of you. The reason Smoke Tree looks the way it does is because the sine qua non of Smoke Tree is open space to allow critters to live. We're living lightly on the land, and there is not a preclusion of things that aren't native, but there's an emphasis on appropriate desert plants, and there's also historically accurate plants. So tamarisk trees are historically used throughout the valley as windbreaks. And they're planted at Smoke Tree as well as other places in the city, and I won't opine. They also were planted along the railroad tracks as windbreaks, and they are not native. I don't know that they are as thirsty as people try and make them out to be. They're really amazing habitat. Interestingly, we have an endangered species at Smoke Tree, and they love the tamarisk trees, the Casey June beetle. So we spend a lot of time talking about it, and the parts of the landscaping that are visible from the street are desert appropriate. The backyards can be more lush, and that's the way that the standards are enforced. It is the largest alluvial, it's on the alluvial fan of Palm Canyon, and it is the largest Smoke Tree forest, I think, in California, and they're all still there. And they grow to old ages because they don't get swept away since the berm was built to cordon off the wash after the flood of 1938, I want to say. And
Thank you. One more question related to that. So with tamarisk trees being invasive and a weed, as you say,
well, I didn't say it.
have you ever seen where the roots have caused issues with plumbing or
Yes.
anything?
The roots are highly invasive, and it's very hard to uproot or remove a tamarisk tree, if you've ever tried to. That's a historic tree. It would cause an uproar. We have conversations all the time about what is historically accurate or not. I like to say that the rest of Palm Springs is covered by a carpet of palm trees and rooftops. And if you look at Smoke Tree, we deserve credit for being really good custodians of the land compared to everywhere else. And if the commission's not aware, the view lots, some are owned by the ranch itself and some are owned by individual homeowners. And we have a conservation easement of some 110 acres that should also get us some commendation, because no one gives away hundreds of millions of dollars of development rights in order to preserve views, or at least they don't anymore. And that's actually, the conservation easement is actually relatively new to protect that, because it was always historically what Smoke Tree did. It left all that open space and intervening open space in order to inure to everybody's view. But it was codified, just in the 2000s. So it will remain that way for posterity.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask who administrates the easement?
We have Center for Natural Lands Management, and it was privately funded by owners within the ranch. And we get inspected 3 or 4 times a year by a naturalist. And we've participated in the Center for Biological Diversity, as well as the Fish and Wildlife Services surveys of Casey June beetle. We are hip to the environmental concerns.
That's remarkable.
It is. It is.
Great, thank you.
Thank you,
Anyone else have anything on that? Peter?
Not on the tamarisk trees. The issue of Clark not getting his due. It's unfortunately he destroyed all of his papers.
No, that's a rumor.
Was it in the
Stan
report,
Clark,
though?
I have recently, just so you know, that there's some research being done, and I think he didn't find them to be precious, but there are some papers, and it's going to be unearthed, and there's new research going on, and so I think it's
That's
kind of
good news.
exciting. It is.
So this is the
It's news to
report.
you, Pete.
Well, no, report, your report.
Well, it's
It's
not,
the
it's a different researcher, and
And it was a year or 2 ago, I think, it was prepared.
yeah.
But really, so that's very exciting.
It
I
is.
can't wait to learn what's
He's-
in it.
Yeah, in my summer hiatus from my newspaper article, did you read Luke Leuschner's little piece? Well, so he's got some of the papers, and he's I've helped him, and so has PSPF, and so there will be more.
Good news, thank you.
Of course.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I think that's all for you at this time. Thank you so much.
I just had one other
Oh,
comment.
remember that.
It would be really wonderful to see, as we talked about, Smoke Tree designated as a historic district. And I know that's really hard to do with, a lot of, property owners, but I also, just throwing it out there, nothing for discussion, but if there's any thought to potentially even doing it as a cultural landscape and not necessarily including the buildings.
That's a good idea.
Cause I think there's so much support for the property generally. So maybe just something to
Good
think
idea.
about in the future.
Good idea.
Thank you, Member Hanson. So, the reason I brought all that up is obviously it's so important. And if you go back to Palm Springs at the time that the ranch was built in the early 1930s, there were no palm trees here. It was all tamarisk trees, it was the smoke tree forest, it was California oak trees. And the aerial photographs from that time show very little palm trees except what was in the canyon. So it is definitely a contributor to setting and feeling. So I really appreciate that the brands have that whole program in place and that they consider that tamarisk tree historic, because I do too, and I will fight for my historic trees and plants. So I think we've gotten everything out of the way on this particular nomination. So is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing no further action on this item, may I have a motion, please?
Go ahead, Jim.
Alright. I move that the HSPB adopt resolution number, HSPB number 159. A resolution of the Historic Site Preservation Board of the City of Palm Springs recommending that the city council designate the Burnham Wells residence as a class 1 historic site, subject to conditions and a determination pursuant to SEQA that this actually is not a project.
Great, thank you, and I will second that motion. So is there any further discussion? Okay, I will call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Wonderful, motion passes 5-0. Congratulations. Alrighty.
Even if you wants to participate in the meeting, so that you can't chat. Thank you.
I'll be here.
Passing that along. Yes.
Staff, do you have anything to interject at this time, or can I move along?
You may move along.
Great, thank you very much. Next item is item 2B, application by Scott Timberlake and Ann Krugman, represented by the Palm Springs Preservation Foundation for the historic site designation of the Merrill Lynch Building, located at 415 South Palm Canyon Drive, HSPB number 160. May we please have a staff report?
415 South Palm Canyon is a commercial building that has been brought before the board with the request for class 1 landmark designation. This property is located in the central business district, and the lot line around the parcel incorporates a portion of the parking lot directly behind the building and the building in its entirety. The building was completed in 1971 and was designed by master architect Elwood Wexler. Immediately, the scale and classical references are notable features of the building. The columns are simple in design with modern interpretation of ornamentation, and the portico creates an entrance that is a character-defining feature of this building. Historic context of this site is in the post-World War II period, and the architectural context that we see here is a modern style identified as New Formalism, which is identified with the use of symmetry and scale, the freestanding columns again, and the pilasters of the entablature and the podium in which the building sits on are all features utilized to create a sense of monumentality and scale. The report includes historic photos of the construction, which was indeed a steel frame construction. The surrounding setting, as well as the overall details of the building, all remain remarkably intact. The report does clarify that in 2014, renovations of the site did include the restoration of the exterior with the involvement of the original architect, Commissioner retain a lot of key elements and features. So this building in its current form expresses its period of significance when it comes down to expanding financial, when it comes to the expanding of the financial district of the Palm Springs, the downtown area. It also exemplifies the architectural style of new formalism. It exemplifies an architectural style of new formalism, in its most, and its mostly unaltered state. The design of the building as a financial institution for Merrill Lynch, was also done by, of course, a well-respected and influential architect, John Wexler. So we see criteria 3 and 5 being met with this building. The integrity findings for the site are all met here. Most importantly, the integrity of design and the integrity of materials and association are met. Despite the change in use of the site, currently it is a medical center. The building still reads as a building associated with the financial district. It has that sense of importance and monumentality that was associated with many financial buildings in that commercial core area. It's a little bit robust in terms of text, but the detailed description of character defining features are listed in the historic resources report and also in the staff report. The design of the building relies on its monumentality, but it uses minimal ornamentation, it uses clean lines, and the surfaces are also unadorned. Those are all critical aspects to express the overall aesthetic of the building. It's ironic that we try to describe something that's simple, using a lot of words to describe that. Then when you move over to the non-contributing elements, those are mostly related to code-related updates, addition of railings, and changing certain tiles and aspects that have been deteriorated over time. One of the non-contributing elements noted here is the bronze sculpture that has been adhered to one of the surfaces. This has been identified as a non-contributing element because it is not original to the site itself. It was a sculpture that previously hung at the Spa Hotel before its demolition. So based on the thorough historic resources report and the site visit, staff finds that the property address 415 South Palm Canyon meets criteria 3 and 5. The necessary integrity findings to exemplify the historic nature of this building. This is an owner-initiated request for designation of a commercial property, and it does meet the historic significance as was outlined in the report. Therefore, staff recommends HSBB adopt resolution 160 for the designation of the Merrill Lynch building as a class 1 landmark site. I believe Stephen Keelan is on virtually to answer any questions for the applicant team. And I can take any questions related to the staff report.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Does the board have any questions for Jack?
I have a question. I'm not sure if this is the right time. I had a question on your character defining features. Is this an okay time? On page 8 of 8 of the staff report, it says, just by way of a little bit of background, I like to make sure that the designating resolution has all the right character or contributing, non-contributing. So I usually compare the consultant. Anyway, I just found I was confused by a couple of things. It said the 4 existing California fan palms from the Ruth Hardy plan down Palm Canyon. But then the consultant report said mature California fan palms in the parking lot. Are those different trees?
I believe they are different, but I don't think that they're identified correctly. We can have the applicant
Okay.
clarify that.
And then also on the consultant report, they said 4 mature olive trees at the entrance to the parking lot. So, and those, there were no olive trees in the staff report.
Correct.
So just a clarification of those features.
Member Hare.
The question I had about sort of tags onto what Janet asked is that they, the fan palms, the Washingtonian filifera are the foliferas, and the olive trees are cited as contributing features. But there is no real landscape designer that is can be assigned to this project, and I don't recall us normally adding trees as contributing features.
That is correct. The report doesn't identify a specific landscape architect. It does reference a desert landscape design. And identify some of the elements of that, but you're correct, there isn't a designer associated with that design. And in terms of not being in the practice of listing landscape material as contributing features. Unless there is a specific call out as part of the design incorporating the landscape. For example, we had a project where the designer designed the home around a specific feature, a specific existing tree. And that became a very important focal point to the design. And so that is one instance where we did include a tree as part of the landscape element. But generally speaking, we don't encourage including landscape trees and features, because those are subject to change based on its survival, based on new water requirements, etc. So unless there is a very specific design intent, we encourage adding those in.
So I guess I was trying to figure out why, especially the olive trees, would figure into that sort of design intent. I mean, the 4 trees that existed in the along the sidewalk were mentioned, but as in connection to, but not necessarily designed for or to line up with the columns. So I'm confused sort of about why they're wonderful, of course, and etc. But whether that actually is part of the contributing feature was my question.
For the California palms and its contribution.
Well, the palms and the olives as well, since they're both in that report.
I can speak to staff's reasoning on why the olives didn't make it and the trees did. It was really related to the fact that there was description in the report saying the columns were laid out specifically in conjunction with the existing mature trees, and a feature of essentially South Palm Canyon, as it was part of the Route 30 plan to have a row of mature palm trees. And so that was called out as a contributing feature on a larger setting scale. Whereas the olive trees, like you had mentioned, was called out more as part of a desert landscape, but not necessarily having a more intended element to the design of the site.
So I apologize for drilling down on this a bit. I'm sort of curious. We talked about in the past lot splits and how, in other words, how in just this instance, Smoke Tree with the new lot is a separate parcel. And my question is then, does the parcel that this sits on actually include the sidewalk up to the curb?
The parcel does not include the trees. It is up to the sidewalk itself, and so essentially the existing Palm Canyon trees are on city right of way.
I would like to elaborate on what Member Hare said, even though it's not a direct question of staff, I just wanted to elaborate on that further. So regarding those 4 palm trees, so often when we evaluate a historic resource, we do so based on its street facing facade or way present to the public right of way. So I can understand and appreciate how the architect was directly influenced by those 4 columns in creating that plan of a temple with column. And just to quote from the nomination that was written by Stephen Keelan, who is probably the foremost authority on local Coachella Valley desert landscape architects and landscaping in general. He says landscape architect David Hamilton possibly designed the landscape for the Merrill Lynch building. Hamilton was Webster's favorite landscape architect, and they worked together on many projects in the valley. The landscape at Merrill Lynch has a similar Mediterranean climate plant palette and strong architectonic style as other projects that Webster and Hamilton collaborated on, most notably the Palm Springs Airport. The building was designed so that the 4 columns in front support the open air portico, would fall in rhythm, though not in line, with the 4 existing California fan palms that have been planted as part of Bruce Carty's plan. So he does address all of that in the report, and I can appreciate where he's coming from because he is the local expert on the landscape architects. So I think the concerns are justified, obviously, but I think he gives us the facts that we're looking for. So any other questions from staff before we open it up to the applicant?
Yeah, I'm still confused. So the olive trees were left out on purpose. Staff decision. I'm still confused about, are there fan palms in the parking lot and on the street?
Washingtonian.
According to the aerial photograph, there are fan palms in the parking lot.
Mexican fan palms, not
No,
Washington foliferous.
it says mature California fan palms in the parking lot.
Are they?
So
Therefore.
Page 24.
Yeah, therefore,
There's.
What are
there's
they?
a few on the south end, I think, of that,
Oh, that
along the driveway maybe.
along the entrance drive,
Those are Washington foliferous, right?
or those, these or are these?
So so there's 2
Those are
different
ones,
sets of
Are
palms.
those the others?
So Mr. Keeline did not
4
include
palms, 4 palms.
the palms on Palm
Okay.
Canyon,
Olive tree, olive tree, olive tree, olive tree.
which are not part of the actual
Thank
parcel.
It's-
So I guess I'm
it's-
curious
Yeah.
why staff included those palms if they're not on the property.
I think that for. Be consistent with the designation of it being contained on the parcel, those 4 should be taken.
And on that note. So is this Ruth Hardy plan, of course, this is news to me, from this, I didn't know there was an actual plan. So does this go, is there an existing planting plan down Ruth Hardy of palm trees?
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's not relevant to this, but I think, maybe the city should initiate nomination of the Ruth Hardy plan fan palms along Palm Canyon Drive. And kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Are they not designated?
Wow.
So,
Oh,
there you go.
they should be.
Let's do that.
No,
Okay.
There's a history of changing out palms to match. So at some point, they're all gonna be changed, not all of them, but the ones that aren't consistent with I'm not sure exactly which species, but ultimately they should all reflect the intent with perhaps the wrong species that was planted. So there may be some that are gonna be taken out or replaced.
But replaced with Washington foliferous.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, They just have to be, they can't be Mexican fan palms.
Great idea.
Great.
Okay,
idea.
so now I'm not confused anymore, but so. Getting back to the preparer of the nomination. Recommending that the fan palms in the parking lot be nominated and the olive trees on the property, and your staff recommendation is that none of those trees. Okay,
I have one more question for staff. So, in the, contributing features list. I'm just trying to find it here, even though the tiles that are embedded in the concrete podium are not original. It was my sense from the report that because Wexler himself oversaw the restoration, that he specified the new replacement tile that are down there now. So there was nothing in the report saying that they didn't believe that those shouldn't be character defining features. And I'm of two camps. I mean, the first thing I said when we were there was those on the original tile. But then in the report, it alludes to the fact that Wexler oversaw the restoration, and so that would lead me to believe that he and or the architect that he partnered with to oversee the restoration selected those replacement tiles. So that becomes kind of a murky area for me. And because the writer of the report didn't think that they should be excluded from character defining features, I think it could go either way. I think the fact that Wexler was alive and he oversaw kind of how to the integrity there.
I think it's probably time to have Mr. Keelan speak. I think maybe he might be able to clarify and answer other questions we have.
Yeah, and we also have member Moshka Hitchcock's comments and questions to mention as well.
Are
So-
there staff comments that are general?
General questions. She has some questions here about retaining integrity of feeling, conveys the experience of walking into the 70s. Signage, change of landscaping, and she wasn't sure if that met the intent there. So that's perhaps a question and comment. And then the next one was, why is specific glass a contributing element? What happens if it needs to be replaced? And then she has a few other questions here that do respond to these.
Would it be, yeah, we could. Are you would like to direct do you want to go to this, members of the board have any other questions? Do you want to go through the questions?
Sure.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions for staff?
We'll go through, number. Questions. With the first one, I think it's I think the integrity of feeling, doesn't necessarily mean that you are, having an experience of walking into the past. I think it's a general understanding of the site and the design, and it's, the general experience of how that site interacts with the existing landscape and the existing context. And also the architecture itself, so what the architecture is conveying at that time. I think those are things that are still kept. It doesn't necessarily mean that the surroundings can be encapsulated in a specific time period.
Definition.
And the next question is related to the specific glass being labeled as a contributing element, and what happens when those items need to be replaced. I think that's similar with a lot of our contributing features. It's important to identify the specific glass here, because I think it has a character defining feature of of its location and that feel, and I think when we go to a place that we always look to see if we can get something in kind, similar, referring back to what was original. So I think the reference to that is important, it's not, and you know, you can't always match it 100%, but having that reference point is important. And having it listed as a character defining feature.
So the next question is, why are the concrete curbs and the block wall in the parking lot contributing features?
I think that is something the report identifies as contributing features, the concrete curbs, the block walls, the parking lot in the rear of the building. Staff didn't list those as contributing features, but it could be something worth discussing, since it was something that came up in the report. And then
Next question is, why are the olive trees and the 1971 fan palms contributing elements? It sounds like we've already
I
went
think
through
we've
that.
already addressed that, and I think that is an important piece that we've already vetted.
Next question is, are the 4th Street facing fan palms maintained by the city or by the property owner?
Just to add a little bit of context to these particular palm trees. Palm trees down South Palm Canyon associated with the Rudy Cardi plan are actually maintained by the city, which is not typical for a right-of-way trees. If you have a right-of-way tree, the adjacent property owner is responsible for the maintenance of the median and the right-of-way that you're adjacent to. But in the case of palm trees that are planted along South Palm Canyon, those are actually maintained, watered, and there's electricity that they also have the light rings, all of that is maintained by the city. And that's related to the fact that they're part of that.
The next question is, if most of the landscaping is no longer original, does it count as a contributing element?
Wait, what was the question?
If most of the landscaping is no longer original, does it count as a contributing element?
I think again, we would refer back to the design intent, if there was an original design intent of the landscape that was important. And identified. It would be something to notate as a contributing element or a historic element. But again, landscape is one of those, it's a little bit more complex in terms of discussing. How we go about it, how, if it is listed as contributing, how we plan to maintain that. Keeping that in consideration as we go through that application.
Any further questions from Catherine?
Just some comments in here, and then another question about contributing elements, how are they defined? Character defining features, distinguishing characteristics, which fulfill the historic designation. Sounds like these are probably more comment based. So those are the questions.
One of the questions here talks about removal and demolition, if it's contributing, related to the landscape, and I think that is one of the things that, does have to be thought out clearly, because once you start designating specific species and specific things as part of the landscape plan, what that actually entails, replacement of that exact species, that kind of thing, so it's something that needs to be considered when you're adding in landscape components to the destination.
And it also says here, the landscaping wasn't done by a known designer. That, or is it a characteristic feature of Wexler's designs? Or of new formalism?
That might be a question we can add on to Stephen's list of questions. Yeah.
Okay, I have one more clarification I need from staff. Just to clarify, there's here one parcel from street to street. So it's not two separate parcels. We are being asked to designate everything from Palm Canyon Drive all the way back to Pallotta, including the parking lot and the whole thing. So that's how the nomination was written, and I think that's why the landscape is so important, especially the elm trees and the palm trees. And just to rebut the statement that Catherine made, most of the landscaping is original. It's just the part, right up against the building that changed. So, that's a small percentage. And I'm sure the applicant can fill us in and all of that, so I would like to invite them to speak at this time.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been so chomping at the bit to answer some of these questions. I don't know where to start. I guess with Ruth Hardy's, her initiated stately alley of palm trees down Palm Canyon Drive, it's a mix of both Washington and Phyllophora and Robusta, so both Mexican and California fan palms. And no, when they're replaced, they're not always replaced like for like, and it would be great if there was more attention paid to that. There's a deliberate rhythm to those palm trees as they progress down Palm Canyon. So hopefully that does get picked up as an item for research and maybe designation. With the historic design landscape, I really believe this is the work of David Hamilton. I just wasn't able to verify it because the plans don't exist anymore. You know, the palm trees in front I didn't include because they were pre-existing, and I think Wexler responded to those with the rhythm of the columns in front. But they are California fan palms in the back, and there's a rhythm to those in the back parking lot that relates to the architecture. The olive trees create this really nice sort of compression and expansion as you come off Palm Canyon Drive, and what better tree to represent ancient Greece than old olive trees? So that's Hamilton, you know, working with the Mediterranean palette as he often did. With a historic design landscape, yes, we should designate things that are character defining features of that. And if pest or drought makes them unfeasible, then we know that they're character defining and important, and we work hard to find a replacement that's suitable and compatible in size, leaf style, leaf texture, color, all those sorts of things to emulate what the design intent was of the landscape. Yeah, I called out the bronze glass because it's an important architectural feature, and every attempt should the glass have to be replaced. Every attempt should be made to find something as, you know, as matching as possible. I can't remember all the questions, but I don't know if I've answered everything.
Oh, Member Hampton has a question for you.
I have a question that relates to one of Catherine's comments. I think she asked about curbing or something.
The curbs in the parking lot.
Yeah, you have the concrete curb planting beds in the rear parking lot, but you have those too, Sarah. You included those. So I'm not sure what else Catherine was talking about. The only curbs that I see are, Stephen had identified those in his contributing elements, and they're also in the staff report as contributing. So I think that's clear, yeah? Is that correct, Stephen? There was nothing
Yeah,
else?
they have a distinctive style, and it's similar to what Wexler and David Hamilton did for the airport a few years earlier. And, you know, they contain those important architectural palm trees that relate to the architecture of the building.
Oh, so the planting beds are where the trees are.
Right.
Okay. Got it.
Anyone else have questions for Mr. Keelan? I have one. The Spa Hotel, aka the Agua Caliente Band of Korea Indian, donated the Abbott Patterson sculpture, which of course is a non-contributing element. Do we know, or do you know if they donated it to Eisenhower, and if Eisenhower were to vacate this building, would they remove that sculpture and take it away?
That I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? Mr. Keelan, do you have anything final to add at this time?
I don't think so. I think it's just a wonderful building that's almost completely extant on the exterior and um, serves a great purpose now too, and great example of adaptive reuse by a great architect, and probably
Great.
a landscape architect.
I agree, and thank you so much for your wonderful report. I think we all learned volume from it, and really nice to see something giving equal value to the landscape, which is really important as town continues to get older and we lose some of our historic landscapes. So thank you for that. All right. In no further questions of staff or any further input from the applicant, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this further? Cheryl, you're welcome. Come back if you need to.
Hi again, I just wasn't quite prepared before, so I'll see if I can do it a little bit better. So proud of that building and to be in there. And I think that just the fact that it was done by Don Wexler elevates the status of the building because of that. And I was gonna mention the sculpture too, because since Don worked on the spa also, if there's some kind of connection there that brings anything together. And Stephen, you took my comment about adaptive reuse, so thanks.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate it. All right, so we're closing the public hearing now at this time, and the action now with the board for any further comments or discussion. Member Hanson.
Okay, I have a couple of comments. First, I would like to again thank Stephen Keelan for his report. I personally would support adding back in the olive trees and the mature California fan palms on the property into the into the list of character defining features. I understand, you know, that is often the case that we don't include plantings or trees, but I think this was probably part of the original design of the site generally, not just the building, since we're again not looking at architecture in a vacuum. So I would be personally in favor of having those added back in. And the other thing that I would really like to see is, sorry, I have my piece of paper here. I really enjoyed the discussion actually of the Palm Springs Financial District. Starting on page 8 of the report and the map that showed the buildings 1 through 10 and their location. And forgive me if you have something about this in there, but I would really like to see under criterion 3, at least a sentence added from the report that talks about this building's contribution to the financial district. I mean, it was a really important period of commercial development in the post-war period in Palm Springs. And again, it just, to me, it enhances the significance of the property beyond just architecture to talk about it within commercial development and financial development in Palm Springs generally during the post-war period. So there are a couple of, you know, specific sentences that can be right here on page 11. The post-war civic architecture along South Palm Canyon and Indian Canyon is a testament to the city's embracement of modernism, the prosperity of finance, the inspiration of good design. And then there's also another, you know, sentence about the banking or finance industry buildings dotting South Palm Canyon between Baristo, a handful of elegant standards enduring finance icons. So maybe something to that extent. In their heyday, these structures represented the height of financial majesty, inspiration, hope, and prosperity during the post-war era. Just maybe if we could just add something to that under criterion 3. So we're really talking about the time period as well as the architecture within that time period. And I think those were my comments, and I am in support of the nomination.
Anyone have any other comments? Member Mosley?
I agree with your suggestions. I think they're excellent, and yes, I fully support the nomination also.
Anyone over here? No, okay, I would concur with all of that and just point out that this will be the fourth financial institution in that district that will become classified if city council so chooses to do that. So I think we're on the right path with this, and it's really important. The Santa Fe Federal Savings and Loan, where the Architecture and Design Center is now, they actually have tours that start from that building that go through the finance district, and they talk about finance and fashion. So that one, this building here is one of the ones that a lot of the tour goers really like, because it's still extant, it still has a lot of integrity, and the restoration was so good. And it truly is that temple, which is the only bank we have in Palm Springs, other than the Chase Bank, that has that temple-like quality. And when you go to San Francisco or LA and you see some of the really old banks, those do look like the classical Greek temples. So I think, as Member Hanson said, it's very important to recognize that. I just have one last question for Mr. Keelan, if you're still there. Did you have a feeling either way about the replacement tiles embedded in the concrete on the podium surface? I know that Wexler oversaw that. Does it bother you one way or another if they're contributing or non-contributing?
Well, I think in the big scheme, it's, a minor change.
Okay.
And he was aware of everything that happened there, and so I don't object, no,
Good.
if that was your question.
All right, so I think the time to call for motion, please. Jeff?
Before you do that, just to clarify, actually, this is back to the motion in terms of the language, do that, and I'll make sure that the edits
Okay. I'll let them go to the.
You're very good at it.
Sorry, where am I? The right paperwork. Okay. I move that we adopt resolution HSPB number 160, a resolution of the Historic Site Preservation Board of the City of Palm Springs, California, recommending that the City Council designate the Merrill Lynch Building as a Class 1 historic site, subject to conditions and a determination pursuant to SEQA that the action is not a project, and to amend the nomination, the contributing features within the nomination resolution to include the 4 mature olive tree specimens at the entrance to the parking lot, and a single tree at the southwest corner of the building, and the mature California fan palms in the parking lot, and to not include California fan palms that are along Palm Canyon. And also under criterion 3, to add reference to the financial district, the development of a financial district within the post-war period, and this building's contribution to that.
Wonderful, thank you. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Thank you, Peter. So we have a wonderful motion by Member Hanson and a second by Member Marusi. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you and congratulations to the applicant.
Yeah.
All right, moving right along, I'll thank everyone who came and sat in our audience today. We appreciate your participation. Next item is item 3, unfinished business, in which we have none. Moving along to item 4, new business, we have none. Item 5, discussion, we have none. And now, board member comment. Are there any general comment from the board? Member Hampton, please.
I just wanted to reiterate the thought from the previous discussion with regard to considering a nomination of the Ruth Hardy plan of palm trees down Palm Can Drive as a city landmark. So I just wanted to have that in the record. And then my only other comment was, I was wondering if we could maybe sometime soon have a report or an update on how it's going with the process of putting together the presentation for next April's symposium. I think it's been a while since we heard anything. We have a ways to go, but maybe just sometime this fall, if we could get in touch with them and see if they have any questions from us. And then Sarah, because we are gonna have to do some things ourselves and the city, of course, too. Would we probably start that in next year sometime? In terms of, you know, the logistics.
If I can jump in and answer that question, so we, as staff are talking with that group about a symposium and different outlines, and there's a rough outline that has been created. And it is a half-day event, because we reduced it to the single day, and so we have a list of logistics. We will draw in our city resources for certain aspects of it. And I think when we get to probably the beginning of next year, we'll be able to kind of divide out certain tasks based on the symposium. It will be a little bit different since it won't be a 2-day event. We won't have the tours, so the tasks may be a little bit different, but I can give you an update in the fall based on what we have so far. We get into the beginning of the year, we'll probably start getting into the logistical planning.
Actually, had one more thing I forgot about. We had mentioned a few months back about, you know, as a certified local government, board members are required to do some type of training every year. And that's pretty loosely interpreted, and I think the symposium for everyone served that role as both participants in planning it and attendees. But I'd asked the question before, if there is any budget for board members potentially attending conferences and things. And I know the California Preservation Foundation, for example, you know, they do have Zoom type training. And it's not that expensive, but they do charge for it. Obviously, it's a nonprofit organization, but anyway, just a thought, because it's just a way for other board members to get additional information. I was thinking some of the questions, you know, that Catherine had asked, you know, some of the workshops that they do might be informative in some of those, answering some of those questions.
Yeah, if I can respond, so the planning department does have a limited budget for training. And so, yeah, it is something that we can look at doing. If there is something that interests board members. It's especially helpful if it is, there is a remote option, because it, you know, that obviously allows us to do a lot more for more people. So yeah, we can look into those types of things.
Okay, Member Musu.
I'd like an update on the code enforcement inspection of Town and Country Center.
So the update for the Town and Country at the moment is we are working with the owner group. They're providing us with information on what kind of maintenance that they are doing. So again, we're just communicating with them. There have been some addressing of certain questions, but it's currently in discussion with the owners.
Has there been an inspection though by code enforcement?
The code enforcement department has gone by the site. They have found that the initial concerns were addressed, but we're still in discussion with the owner group on certain items.
Can you be more specific when you say what has been addressed?
So, I mean, code enforcement has gone by the site and they have reported back to us saying that they, don't have anything to move forward with specifically. We as staff had forwarded over the complaints that we have received and are working with the owner group to address, the details of those.
Are the details available for inspection? I mean, does it include the collapsed ceiling that's visible from the courtyard?
So all that has been forwarded over and again, I think right now we are communicating what we have received as complaints to the owner group and requesting kind of the maintenance that they have done thus far. They've communicated to us that they have worked on some of those items. And so again, we're just.
When you say worked on, you mean since the complaints? Huh. That's a standard procedure, is working with the property owner in that regard?
The standard procedure is to reach out to the property owners at question and forward over the complaint. And then work with them on the actual issues, so that's kind of where we're at right now.
Just for my edification. In a different situation with a different property owner, still a commercial building, if there's a violation, is that something that, is there a fine associated with it, or, I mean, how does all that work? The code enforcement just has a list, say, well, you know, this and this and this things we observed. Please tell us what you are doing or have done, or.
You mean in terms of code enforcement process? There, and I can't speak specifically to their process, but in general, I believe that they do the reach out. And then as part of the compliance, they have to notify the owners of the actual offenses. And then they have their own stepped procedures on how they go through their enforcement, and if that leads to a fining situation. Again, I'm not super familiar with the exact dates and processes, but the first piece of that is to reach out to the property owner.
Are there any deadlines or anything associated with it? I mean, how long can this stretch out?
That, in my experience, is case by case, with other properties that I've seen, you kind of work with the owner to get that compliance, and sometimes they're on different schedules. In terms of getting that compliance, so it could be a case by case basis unless there is a refusal to work with us or work with code compliance. So
Which is, in this case, is not happening, it's not an issue.
they are communicating with us, so that is not the issue.
Okay, thanks.
Any other board member comments? Okay, I do have a couple, but try to keep it brief. Regarding the Route 30 plan of Palm Tree Jump Palm Canyon Drive, this was something that previous boards have brought up, and it was something that I had also brought up in the past. So I'm thankful for this nomination. I concur with Member Hanson's recommendation that the city try to move forward on initiating that. It's high time that we paid attention to historic plans, especially something that is the namesake of this city. The next thing is regarding the symposium, my understanding that it's still a City of Palm Springs Historic Site Preservation Board event.
Correct.
So I don't want our role to be minimized too much. I think it's very important that coming into the 10th year that we put on a unified upfront effort, and that people continue to understand that this is a HSPB initiated event. So that's very important. And then finally, because I'd like everyone to kind of talk about the boards and commissions on or event they might know about in the community. And last time I talked about the architectural pottery exhibit. So I just wanted to invite all of you, everyone in this room, to a lecture I'll be presenting, which is on October 23rd at 6 p.m. at the library. And it's part of Desert Modernism 101, which is sponsored by the Palm Springs Modern Committee Education Committee. So it's a series of 3 lectures that they do every year, and I'll be presenting the kickoff lecture. And then we'll have several more, one in October, November, December, January, February, and so on. So that's at the library and at the last event at the library before they close for their big remodel restoration supposedly. And that's all I have at this time. So, seeing no further comments from the board, Janet, did you have one more?
Well, I was just the talk you just mentioned. I don't remember hearing about, I think, well, maybe one of our board members had mentioned it. Is that being advertised anywhere? I mean, I haven't seen it, like a lecture series. And dates. Is it on the website or, cause I'm a member. You said a PSPF?
There, you mean the event I mentioned?
It's part of ModCom?
Yeah, so,
Okay,
um,
that I know. Okay,
The
but I
mod-
didn't see this lecture as on the ModCom. I looked at it again today.
there's a link on the Modcom website to our educational event.
There is?
Yes,
But it's not specifically under ModCom events. Cause this lecture was not, I went today and looked for anything free. And this was not.
You're
on
mixing the modern committee with Modernism Week.
there.
This is
Okay,
the Palm Springs Modern Committee,
sorry.
Education Committee.
got it.
Yeah, that's why you're not hearing about it from Modernism Week.
No, I wasn't expecting to. I thought you said Palm Springs Preservation Foundation,
no.
but you did. Okay. All right, I'm clear now.
But she brings up an important point. In terms of our Modcom's website, it should actually have that on the front page. As something that is coming up and it's all these dates that are coming up in a row. So yes, that should, would you be willing to
Sure,
ask for that?
sure.
That would help.
Yeah.
And send out a message to all the members of the modern committee saying that there's this series.
Right. And, you know, this is just illustrates how the community is so easily confused by all the different organizations, and they all think that we're all one organization. But we are four very distinct organizations: the HFPD, PF.com, Modernism Week, and Palm Springs Preservation Foundation. Completely separate, but we do overlap quite a bit. So now I will open up to staff for final comment, please.
So.
Before we move on to staff comments, I want to read the statement from member Moshka Hitchcock's comments here in the chat. She said she fully intended to be an active participant in today's meeting, and more than dismayed that she was not, or that she was prevented from participating due to a clerical error regarding virtual meeting attendance. I changed my flight for business trip in order to arrive in time to attend virtually. And we let staff know that she'd be out of town and would have to focus via Zoom. Between yesterday and today, she spent 9 hours preparing for the meeting. She had several questions and comments on the application. On the application's resolutions, she would not have voted to approve the resolution to designate the Merrill Lynch building as written, and she was looking forward to engaging in a spirited discussion with all of you. The reading of her questions, which she did not have the opportunity to prepare to be read verbatim by another party, does not constitute an accurate representation of her questions. More specifically, she was prevented from presenting and defending the claims and opinions and from attempting to sway yours. She will be addressing all of these at the next HSBB meeting and intends to make comment at the upcoming council meeting on having been prevented from participating today and regarding the resolution to designate the Merrill Lynch building whenever it appears on the agenda. She's honored to be a member of the commission and would not, she is not only takes her responsibility seriously, but she has already found deep fulfillment and enjoyment in participation. She truly looks forward to continuing to learn from all of you and to engage deeply on the issues we are privileged to address.
I believe she's unhappy.
So,
I'll go into, I have 5 comments for staff before we close. One is related to the public integrity ordinance information that was sent out via email in middle of August. It kind of is a timely time to just revisit that the integrity of the public integrity ordinance because we have new city members. We also know that there are a series of large projects that are coming forward and everyone has different capacities as community members. And so again, reviewing that memo is super important. If you guys have any questions related to that, if you have concerns related to that, please send those to us and we would love to get them vetted with the attorney's office. We are looking to try and do a training, so to speak, with our attorneys, but until that time, I think it's really important that everyone reads that information, and if you have questions, to bring them to our attention. Anything you want to add on that one?
There's a memo that was sent by the city attorney relating specifically to HSPB and planning commission and other boards and committees where you serve on another board out in the community. And there's very specific language in the city's ordinances relating to advocating for a particular outcome on an application or a project that might become before the board or commission. In that section of the ordinance, you would be recused from participating in any discussion on those. So we just wanted to make that clear. Because there has been several projects recently that the city has seen public projects generally. So just to kind of be aware of that. And so if there's questions on that, staff is happy to answer those offline if you have specific questions about it or generally here.
The next one is related to the city's change in making sure that all of the board members have a city email with Outlook. This is actually directly tied to the SharePoint sharing of our files, and that is important because of all of our packet material that's being sent to the board is being done virtually. And so having that set up, I think Nita had a training this afternoon right before the hearing. If anyone is having trouble with establishing that, please reach out to us in contact with Anita and or the IT department. But we do want everyone to have that email set up and access to the SharePoints in preparation for October. And if there's any issues with that process, let us know. I think Anita sent out an email with some guiding documents on how to get that set up. But sometimes you might need a little bit of extra training related to that process. Two projects, just as a quick update, while we were dark, we had sent emails to the board related to the Dean Martin House at 1123 North Via Monte Vista and some of the updates and activity, increased activity at Invernada at 657 North Via Miralest. If you have any questions again, please reach out and let me know. The Dean Martin home, there was a violation that was reported on that property. Staff is working with the applicant team to address that violation. There will be an application coming before the HSPD board related to a class 3 major alteration. The brief background there is that that team has exceeded their permit, and so we are working with them on that violation. And then Invernada had some updates related to their increased activity on the site, as well as a request for a game change that staff is approving at a staff level. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out and let me know. The next thing I have is we have two board members who have publications coming out or have already come out. I I already mentioned Janet's publication with the Getty Conservation Institute. Inventories and surveys for heritage management, lessons for the digital age, is that right? So that publication is out. The Getty Conservation Institute does have that information available as an online PDF that you can download or purchase. But again, it's for a lot of work that has gone into it. And Janet, did you want to?
Oh, I was saying it's
Is it-
free. It's a ebook and a PDF. Those versions are both free. If anybody really wants the link, I'm happy to. Yeah, there's a hard copy. I can buy copies with my author discount, so if anybody really wants a copy. I think it's only 30 something. It was 60, 40%.
Good, I'll take it.
And then Peter also has a book coming out on October 20th, that right date? Palm Springs Tiki, Polynesia in the Desert. correct?
Co-authored.
Co-authored.
Ben Kirsten is the other author.
So I did want to just bring mention of that, and I think these accomplishments are very telling of how involved our board members are in the community, and of course, these are books that are directly related to heritage and Palm Springs and the history of Palm Springs. That's a quick light. And last one's for you.
This is actually gonna be my last meeting. I'm taking a position for promotion for another city, so
What?
last day is September 12th, and I definitely have had the pleasure serving the city of Palm Springs and working with all of you and a lot of other smart people that make this city so special. So it's been a real
Where are
pleasure.
you going?
I took a promotion to be a community development director for the city of Banning.
Oh, up the road.
Yeah, just down the road.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll miss you terribly.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
So who will be planning department liaison? Just
Sarah,
all of this.
certainly still continue to serve as primary liaison, and we'll have backup as to be determined. But yeah, we'll still have Sarah, Anita, and I think more on that will, I'm sure, come out here in the next 2 weeks.
Wonderful, thank you. Sarah, did you have any items to add or?
No, I think I would like to take the opportunity to thank David. I think he's been at every single HSCD meeting since I've started. So it will be very difficult to see him go. And he's always been a huge support, has incredible institutional knowledge of all things planning, but also of our historic preservation ordinance as well. I think he's seen this program transform from its infancy to what it is now. So he will be incredibly missed. And we wish him the best.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
thank you. Personally, it's been very great to see the baton being passed from Ken to you. Just thank you again for all of your hard work. And lastly, just a closing comment from me. I would like to thank everyone for being here and for your participation tonight. I think each of us greatly values our role on this commission, and I think that we all respect each other and we respect staff, and we thank everyone for taking the time to be here. And we can understand and appreciate that sometimes things don't always go according to plan at the very last second. So we're mindful of that, and we're just grateful to be here and to be able to work for the city and advise the city council as we're supposed to. So thank you all. And I'm going to adjourn this meeting to the next meeting of Tuesday, October 1st, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. here in the large conference room. So again, thank you all.
You need the gavel.
I wanted to have that I was